You're listening to the WBT Podcast with Michael Lodge. Listen to all of our podcasts at www.wbtpod.com. Stay informed. Let's get started.
Welcome to the WBT. This is Mike Lodge. I'm glad you're here. This is my Friday. This is the day I take off. But I'm here recording the podcast with you, enjoying it, enjoying my cup of coffee. Do you have your cup of coffee? I'm ready to talk if you're ready to talk. Listen, what's really good about a podcast is I get to talk about anything that I want to. And you get to listen. You guys are lucky son of a guns. But I really do want to hear from you, and if you want to participate, you can send a text to 818-252-5682, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you. I do it every single day. So send them in to me. Send those texts to me, and I will respond to them. So what is our conversation going to be about this morning, or afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be? Well, I'm going to talk about something that I really feel strongly about. And right up front, I'm going to tell you I am a capitalist and I'm proud of it. I'm damn proud of it. That's what we're going to talk about, capitalism. And it's a good way of system. I'll be right back.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518 or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.
When I was a kid, I mean a young kid, I was in grade school, I knew I wanted to be a capitalist. I knew the word. I knew the acronyms of business. As a young kid, I was probably the youngest person reading the Wall Street Journal. I was asking my dad, hey, can you give me the Wall Street Journal? When the Seattle Times came in, I would say, hey, let me read the business section. And I would sit there and I would read the business section. I knew what was going on with IBM. I knew what was going on with General Motors. And I didn't really study the stock. What I studied was what was going on in business. Now, I was a weird kid. I will be the first one to admit it. But I enjoyed business. And that's what I always wanted to be. I saw my dad working for a family business. And it was an oil company up in Seattle, Washington. They had one of the only refineries in Seattle. And that oil would come in, go into the refinery, and out it would come as gasoline. And they had gas stations all over Seattle. And you probably, if you're in Seattle, you probably know it was called Seahurst Oil Company. I think it's even still around. It was also called Time Oil Company. And my dad worked for them for years and years and years. And it was owned by one family, not by a big corporation. It was owned by one family. And I watched them. And I learned. And I still remember them to this day. And I was so inspired that that's what I wanted to be. I saw the success. I saw the people being creative. I saw them marketing. I saw them in a free market enterprise where oil prices were going up and down and sideways and forwards and backwards. And they tweaked their business as the markets changed. And then I began studying stocks and bonds. And as I went into school, I wanted to become a business attorney, a corporate attorney. I never made that. But I did go into taxation. And I began focusing on business and corporate tax work. And then I began advising companies, and I began working with them on their reporting issues and consolidated reporting and joining companies together and mergers and acquisitions, and I was loving what I did. And finally, I knew as a kid that I wanted to, at some point in time in my life, own a business. And so that's what I did in 1984. I started my own business, my own consulting firm. And I took on anything that any project that no one else wanted to take on, that's the ones I took on. And that's how I built my reputation, as taking on things that no one else wanted to do. And this sense of doing something, the sense of achieving something, the sense of building something has been in my spirit from day one. I never wanted anything for free. Now, it would have been nice to have something for free, and I would have loved that, especially when I was going to school. When I was going to school, I was so freaking poor. But I knew that I could make it as long as I dug in, had raw grit, and did it. I didn't read any books. I didn't read any books that were telling me, hey, say this phrase and you'll make $1 million, or do this and you'll make $1 million. Nah. What I did is I worked and I took on projects that no one else wanted to do. And I specialized in taxation, in management. I loved management accounting. I loved the analysis part of it. But no one else wanted to do it, or companies just didn't have the manpower to bring in to do it. So I would go in and do it. I had one client that had 70-some companies worldwide, and they needed to consolidate the financial reporting. And I said, you know what? I'll do it. And I went in, and I dug in, and I got it done. So capitalism, to me, is that part of life where you have some grit. You get up every day and you try to do something new. You try to learn something new. You try to take a risk. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. And it's through the losing part is that you get all of your knowledge, so the next time you take on something like that, you will be able to do it. And you are prepared because you've gone through it already. You knew what you failed at. That's what capitalism is about successes and failures. Now, in all my years, I have never, ever agreed with socialism. And I think it's because as I have traveled this world, I have lived in third world countries. I have dealt with third world countries. I have dealt with socialist countries. I have dealt where the rules and regulations are so stupid because their government is trying to make everything even. They're trying to fight for the worker. But the problem is that when the government gets involved, especially through socialism, they really freaking F it up. That happens time and time again. I have been all over this world. I have been in almost every Asian country. I have been in most of Europe now. I have talked to world leaders. I have talked to vice presidents and presidents of countries. I have talked to senators of other countries. I have represented them in some points of time. And every one of them say, we want to be like America. We want to do what you guys are doing because it's a success. I remember there was this one individual who was running for the vice presidency. Well, first he started to run for the presidency, and then he backed down to the vice presidency of the Philippines. And I said, okay, so what do you believe in? I said, you have got to tell your people what you believe, what you think is going to work for your country. And he wouldn't do it. He says, I don't want to put it out there because if I put it out there, they're going to hold me to it. I said, yeah, that's what you do. as a leader. You say what you're going to do, and then you do it. But they had this mentality in that particular country that they did not want to put anything out there, because in a socialist country, you always pull back in as much information as you can so that the public doesn't understand what's going on. That's what socialism does. There's no freedom of speech, actually, because they're holding back most of the information. They know that their economy is tanking, but they will spread the propaganda that everything's going fine. And I have seen where I have literally been in a country where there was a coup going on at that very moment in time. The military officers were held up in a hotel, and they were holding the country hostage. And the former vice presidents and the guy that wanted to become president were held up in their offices, planning everything, how they were going to take over. I have been through this. And I have seen that countries never get ahead except the elite, the individuals who are in charge. They're the ones who make money, because what happens in socialist countries is that the elite become very corrupt, because they've got their power in their hands and their claws on everything that everybody does. If you want something done, you have to pay somebody off. I have literally, at one point in time, I was setting up my business in an Asian country. Now, if you don't think there's corruption, it's all out there. It's in every single government position. Their Internal Revenue Service was notorious of, hey, just give me a few $100 and I'll make it go away. That's how corrupt it was. So I decided, well, I was going to hire an attorney to help me form a corporation in this Asian country. I'm not going to say what country it is. So I went to the SEC, and there are people literally out on the street with typewriters, with carbon ink to type out the corporate documents. So I paid a few bucks to have somebody type it out for me. I took it into the SEC. Immediately, the attorney that was reviewing the corporate documents wanted $100 just like that. I said, no, I'm not going to pay $100. It took me 3 weeks to get those corporate papers through the system. I refused to pay the $100. I refused to stoop down to this corrupt mentality where the elite, the individuals who are in charge, expect something from you. I have never seen any socialist government in any country work. It usually goes into failure, and pretty soon there's a coup. Somebody is trying to take over somebody else. We saw this happen in the United States here with Trump, where the elite tried to take over the country through a political coup. So if that can happen, I want you to imagine what would happen if a socialist president got into office, or even socialist people in government. I'm looking at San Francisco right now, and I'm looking at how socialist of a government they are, where they won't even support the rule of law. They have a district attorney there that will not even support the rule of law because he thinks everybody should be treated equally. If you've shot somebody, you should be let go. If you've robbed somebody, you should let go. If you've raped somebody, you should be let go. Because that's the fair thing to do. That's how socialists think. So immediately under socialism, what you see is a deterioration of the rule of law. I've lived and worked in so many different foreign countries where I've seen this happen time after time and time again. They say, oh no, we're not socialists, but in actuality they are socialists. A socialist is a socialist. Get that through your heads. And I know that many of you who are young and you're thinking, gosh, everything should be equal. No, nothing should be equal. You have to work for it. If you want success in this life, you've got to work for it. You have to take the risk. You have to get people around you who are smarter than you. You have to work the whole system, and you work as hard as you possibly can to do whatever you want to do in life. Because under capitalism, you can do that, but under socialism, you can't. And under socialism, you're told what to do, what pricing you can fix, what dollar amounts that you can spend, what amount of money that you can make. And if you make too much money, then you are going to be attacked, and you're going to be tried. You are going to have the attempt on you to be sunk because you have achieved something. You have had success. Socialism is jealous of success. So those of you who are young, I want you to realize, get on a plane today and go to a socialist nation and see how well it works out for them. It doesn't. Even in the European nations of Sweden and Denmark, they are having a problem right now with that $1,000 subsidy that they give every person that's in school, because now people, instead of going to school for 4 years, they're going 6 and 7 and 8 years because they get that free $1,000 every single month. And they stretch it out. So they're saying we can't afford this any longer. We have got refugees coming in here from Syria who are no longer, or who are not participating in the tax stuff because they're earning no money. They're taking, but they're not putting in. So the rest of the nation suffers, and their tax rates go up higher because under socialism, you have to provide for everybody. They have no incentive to go out there and work. Once you start giving out free stuff, the incentive of achieving and having that success in life goes away very, very quickly. Because people get so enthralled in all this free socialist stuff. In actuality, it's costing everybody higher taxation and a whole bunch of stress. The biggest destruction of any families in marriages is the issue of financial stress. Under socialism, you are paying so much in taxation that you literally have nothing to save anymore. I was riding in a taxi cab in Italy. I was going to the hotel. I think it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. And I asked the driver, I said, listen, how is everything here in Italy? And he started to rant. He says, I can no longer live. I can no longer go out with my family and watch a movie or have dinner or anything or dance or have any fun because everything goes to taxes. And he says, I want to revolt in this country because it's such a burden now to us. The bankers are making billions of dollars, and this is in a socialist country. So remember that. The elite were making the money. The politicians were making the money. The bankers were making the money. He says, I want to be able to provide for my family. I want to be able to have fun with my family. I want to be able to save, but I can't do it because I'm being taxed for every single thing that I do. When I was in Denmark a couple of years ago, they were having their elections. And the big topic at that time was getting rid of all of this free stuff because they can no longer afford it. In Sweden, the majority of the people, I think it's 1 in 5 Swedes now send their kids to private school. It's 1 in 5 Swedes who are now setting up their own 401k plans because the government just doesn't provide enough. So if you really want to know what socialism is all about, you have got to go to a socialist country and you've got to hear the words that come out of the taxi cab driver, the person that's working in the hospital, the individual who is driving the tour bus. Listen to what their response to the question is, how are you doing? And the answer that comes back, we're not doing well enough. So all of these countries that Bernie Sanders points to, they're not doing well enough. The individuals who are stuck under a socialist-style government are not doing well enough. Now, those countries who are capitalists, like the United States, we do very well. There are individuals here who are living on the street, yes, and that is our responsibility to understand why. What is the mental health issues, why they're on the street, and what are their drug participation and why they're on the street. And how can we help that group of people? But we never do. And the socialists never do. Those people will continue to be out there on the streets, even with the socialist governments, because they don't care. They don't care. And they don't care now. Bernie Sanders doesn't care about those individuals on the street. Now, he may talk about it, but he never does anything about it. He's been in the Senate in the Congress for over 27 years, and he has done nothing. Same thing with Elizabeth Warren. Same thing with Buttigieg as mayor. Even the people in his city do not want him ever to come back. Socialism does not work, but capitalism is this wonderful experience where you have the ability to make choices. You have the ability to make bad decisions and the ability to make really good decisions. You have the ability to surround yourself with really bright and industrious and smart individuals, or you have the ability to really freaking F it up by surrounding yourself with socialist-style minds. I'm telling you right now, as an individual who hires people, I would never hire anybody who thinks socialist. I will scan their Facebook pages and their TikTok pages and everything else to understand who that individual is, how he believes and how he talks, and if he even utters one word of Bernieism or any word of socialism, I wouldn't even consider them. Because that individual is not going to come into my company and make it better or make it stronger or add any value. If you think of socialism, it's all about your needs. No one else's. You have no loyalty to the company, but you have loyalty to an ideology that does not work. So that's where I stand. I am a capitalist at heart, and I always will be, and I will defend it. I will defend it. In capitalism, you have the ability to go out and do great things, to build great companies, to be a really good nurse or a really good physical therapist or a really good journeyman. Or yesterday, I performed a wedding for some people from Wyoming. And what they do is they drive big equipment. And then they come here half of the year to warm up, and then they go back to Wyoming to work during the non-cold part. So you have the ability to do and be whatever you want. Under socialism, you lose that control. You no longer have the ability to have that dream to become a billionaire. You don't have that ability anymore under socialism. Because now you have to share. You can't invest back into your own companies. You have to share. You can't buy another company because you've got to share your wealth. You've got to share your net profits. So I encourage every single one of you who are talking about this socialist dream. You've got to go and visit socialist countries. Now, what I don't get, the Democrats keep bringing up this Russia thing every single day, but yet they are willing to vote in a socialist into government that is exactly what Russia is all about. It's exactly what Cuba is all about. That is the weirdest thing I have ever seen. If you take Bernie Sanders' financial plan, and if you look at what Lenin wrote up when he took over Russia, it's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same beliefs. It's exactly the same theories. So you just have got to have some common sense in this. Socialism has never, ever worked. At some point in time, there is a coup. There is a takeover. There is a fight internally. And it becomes very dangerous. I've seen it happen. I have been locked in my office waiting to see what was happening down the street in a hotel where the army soldiers had taken hostages and they were trying to overthrow the government. I have been through that, and I don't want to be through it again. I have been stuck in my office waiting for the rioters to go past my office as they were throwing things and chanting things. I have been through that under socialism. And I have been through chaos. I don't want to go there again. So I will defend, because I am a capitalist and I believe in you having the ability to do whatever you want to do without the government intruding into what you're trying to do. I believe in capitalism and I will support you in whatever you want to do. But if you choose socialism, then you've lost me. I will not support a socialist mindset. I will not support a socialist agenda. I have lived through it and I don't want to live through it anymore. Socialism creates economic chaos, and economic chaos creates political chaos, and we are destroyed at that point in time. Socialism and democracy do not go together. They don't. Those that preach democracy and say, we will support the Constitution of the United States, once you become a socialist, that Constitution means nothing because it's their political will on you. No longer legal, it becomes political. And the political power takes over. The elite take over under socialism. You can call it whatever you want. If you want to call it democratic socialist, if you want to call it I'm a socialist democrat, which way you want to turn that socialist before the other name, you are still a socialist. You are still the individual who wants to be free but not work for it. You're the individual who wants that free healthcare, that free education, everything to be paid for, but you will never work for it yourself. Because that is not your mindset. Once you say, I want something free, you do not have the will to build anything, to start anything, to take a risk, to grow, to create. You've lost it. Socialism wipes out all of that. Because it becomes all about whatever you earn, you share it with the government. Whatever money you make, you share it with a whole bunch of people who are not even putting in the hours or the time or anything. I remember when I was in the Philippines working, they had this crazy rule. At the end of the year, you had to pay them a 13th month salary. And then it went to 14 months. Now, they didn't work for those 2 extra months. They didn't work for anything. But the government said you have to pay them those extra months, which is a high cost to a lot of businesses, especially if you're a mom and pop. A lot of businesses in the Philippines don't even report their taxes because they don't want the government coming in and telling them what to do. The small guy gets burned. But you have all of these weird things that pop up because the government officials want to have the votes of the people, so they say, okay, we're going to give you 14 months a year to be paid.
14 months is equal to 1.167 count.
Once you know it, Google would get involved. This is...
I'm waiting here quietly until someone asks me a...
You know what, Google? I don't like you anymore. Shut up. Every single time I even say anything, it pops up and starts talking to me. Socialism, I'm telling you, it's socialism. I think I've talked long enough on this subject. I just want you to understand that I am a capitalist at heart, that I will always support capitalism. I will always support a free market society, and I will always support that you and I have the ability to do whatever we want to do without the government interference. And that is the way that America was built. That's why people came here from England to start this country, to get away from this overtaxation, this overbearance by government and kings. So they started America so that we were independent. Why do you think that we celebrate Independence Day every year? It's because we believe in our own freedoms, our own liberties, our own constitution, our own form of government. This is Mike Lodge, and that is it for this Friday. I want everybody to go out today. Think about what I've said. You don't have to agree with me. I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying, listen to what capitalism does for you that is far better than any type of socialist government that you think that you're getting. Bernie Sanders has told you that he's a socialist Democrat, but let me tell you, a socialist is a socialist, and the social ideologies are very harmful to your freedoms, to your liberties. And there's so much out there for you to take into examination of all these countries who have failed at socialism. Everybody go out and have a good Friday. This is Mike Lodge for the WBT. If you have any questions or comments, send me a text at 818-252-5682. Again, that's 818-252-5682, and I'll be more than happy to answer it. Have a good Friday. Happy Friday. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
This podcast has been produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.